Thank you, everyone, for being present today. My name is Ruxandra Lupu. I'm a research associate at Cardiff University, where I work on a bigger research and development program in the film and media industry. But the other part of my work relates more to my own creative business, where I do research at the intersection of fashion and technology. Today, the paper I'm going to present is more connected to a project that I've been working on with Margherita Tufarelli, a researcher from the University of Florence at Ray Design Lab. My presentation is called The Virtual Life of Textiles, a Provisional Haptic Library Model. As I said, the structure that I'm going to use today in this 20 minutes is to give a brief outline of our team, who we are running this project, some words about the project, make a small introduction to mediated fashion that represents the framework around our project, then talk briefly about haptics in relation to fashion and technology, and a few words about the methodology that we are using in our project. And then I will go more in depth into the pilot experiment that we undertook at the Ray Design Lab and the first results that we obtained, and finalize with the conclusions. So, as I said, the team is composed of myself and the Ray Design Lab at the University of Florence. This is a project funded by the European Union through the Worth Partnership Project. It lasts 9 months and we're almost half through this project. Our competencies lie in the areas of printmaking and textiles, film. As I said, I'm working more in this area, digital humanities and visual arts, whereas the skills of Ray Design Lab at the University of Florence looks more at the digitalization of product and textiles, digital archives, 3D scanning and 3D modeling, fashion design, and textile education. So about our project, the Haptic Library project, what we aim to do with this project is mainly answer one question: how can material libraries work well remotely by conveying the tactile qualities of sustainable textile innovations? And as I said, we're using our combined knowledge and know-how to work at the intersection of haptic film and 3D modeling in fashion. So what we're actually interested in is to see what are the potentials of visual haptics to turn around the way in which digital textiles are being experienced in a virtual world. And to do this, we are using theories from haptic film in combination with 3D modeling. The stage that we're at is, as I said, at the pilot stage. Right now, we're looking at this technological pathway that we're developing through the project funded by the European Union. But our aims are to go then beyond that and try to build a prototype to follow a design-driven pathway and build a prototype for a haptic library that works with different modules. So we can propose to different institutions several modules that can enhance their collections in relation to how the experience that the audience has in a digital world. So to make a small introduction to our project is mainly framed by this concept of mediated fashion. As we all know, digitization has brought radical changes in design, the communication and production of fashion. So this has created a suitable context for the knowledge economy, which has transformed textile and fashion archives, so what we call the material archives, into active parts of storytelling and design for new goods and services. So practically archives have become here in all effects knowledge laboratories, where designers and people do not simply go to get more information about textiles, but also to recreate and get inspiration for new works and new designs. So as the digital environments mature and support the knowledge economy, new media shape a digital world, also a combination between the physical and the digital, that calls archive to design more meaningful interactions for the audiences. So the issue is that mediated fashion continues to evolve very quick at a rapid pace, so that it is affecting the very nature of the products, of fashion products, rendering them immaterial, digital, and interactive. The issue is that there are yet some technological limits. So, for example, material simulation is still in an embryonic phase. The material qualities of textiles are supported through different technologies like 3D modeling, also virtual reality, augmented reality, but nevertheless, the evolution of haptic devices is not yet ready to render the fabric properties that are more multisensorial at the level of touch and so on. So haptics remains in this context quite challenging area for the virtual textile experience. So our research context, as I said, is framed by haptics. What we're interested in is how to create a more immersive experience for digital users that are interested in textile innovations. So haptics is briefly the science and the technology of transmitting and understanding information through touch. So this is practically a multidisciplinary area of study. And what is interesting is that it has these two layers to it. On the one side, it's the scientific layer, and the other, the artistic layer. So while the scientific layer looks at the study, for example, of biological receptors and testing methods that use perceptual studies, so they are grounded in fixed sciences, as it uses also, for example, the analysis of signal processing and programming in order to track haptics. The artistic layer uses scientific knowledge to enable the induction of feeling through bodily sensations. So this complex aspects of haptics makes it quite rich area of study where different disciplines intersect, for example, phenomenology, neuroscience, psychology, cognitive studies. What we're interested in our project is to look at three areas that influence the way in which haptics is being experimented with in the realm of fashion. And we have, on the one hand, haptic textiles, so the science related to actual materials, the area of haptic film, and the fashion film area. And I will very briefly go through these three. So in the haptic textile area, we have on the one hand haptic devices that help us get a sense of the remote sense of the tactile experience of material. So we can do this through gloves, special gloves, or even screen-based technology. So applications such as Canvas Touch or WeArt are dedicated to enhancing this area. The downside to it is that they're not really accessible. So this is quite costly technology, and also in terms of reliability, it doesn't enable complete reproduction of the real sense of touch for textiles. On the other hand, we have visual haptics, is the area that is also interesting for our project. And here we have practically tests that involve fabric hand using sensory analysis and the cross-modal relation between vision and touch. Studies in this area provide interesting findings because they say that vision alone can compensate for the lack of tactility in a virtual environment, but also that memory influences tactile perception. So the difficult part here instead is that these tests are very complex and there's no taxonomy yet for haptic properties. The area of haptic film, on the other hand, looks at haptic visuality. In film and media studies, haptic film is quite an established area. So media theorists like Laura Marks, Jessica Barker, and also film practitioners have been speaking about vision that can become tactile. So using film to trigger physical memories connected to the senses and stimulating the senses through either narrative styles in film or through cinematic effects. So film strategies such as blurs, the use of grain, mix in different formats, or slow motion can become interesting tools when rendering this effect of touch. And last but not least, we have the fashion film as a branding element. So films such as Le Mythe de Dior or We Are Who We are some of the examples through which brands have used film in this mediated fashion context. They have started using it instead of fashion to present fashion collections, but also at conceptual and commercial level. So the methodology that we use in our project is actually inspired by research through design that employs project-grounded actions to advance knowledge. And this enabled us to treat the haptic library as a design artifact and as a transformational outcome that has this modular structure that I talked about, but enables also to build theory through practice. So what we used as a tool in our first pilot project is inspired by the textile triangle by Atkinson et al. And this triangle uses 3 layers: the physical textile properties, the perceptual space, and the communication space, to which we added the space that we're interested in, the space of haptic film potential. So practically what we did is we started to test with designers the haptic qualities, different haptic qualities of textiles. So what we're interested is in how can the descriptors that we obtain through through the textile hand tests be associated with different gestures that designers make in order to perceive different qualities of textile, and can we map through video and film practically the movements of designers? Can we establish a sort of taxonomy out of it? So the results, we work practically with 4 types of textile innovations. First, Corka text, which is a textile that includes cork waste. Then we worked with Ojo skin, which is a bio-based material made of waste from oranges and cacti. Then 1 cactus leather that is recycled, and then we work with a carded wool double fabric. So these were the 4 fabric that we tested, and using this 4-layer structure, we started with sight. So practically the first test consisted in designers having to give a score to 7 textile properties like texture, temperature, weight, resistance, rigidity, density, and thickness. So what we noted is that the highest fluctuation, for example, is registered by the assessment of weight. So then it's followed by assessment of density and temperature. So this indicates that weight is more difficult, more personal to assess than, for example, temperature. Then we noted also that for the B-by FLP textile, it's among the types with the highest variation, while Corka text, which had a more concrete and more remarkable kind of texture, it presented less variation in the scoring. And the 2 leather-like textiles, they evidence similar scores. So with only 1 exception, so the evaluation of temperature for the black leather was quite different from the other kind of leather that we used. We then proceeded with second test where it was all about the tactility and touching materials, so perceiving the 7 qualities and scoring them after designers touched the materials. And we noted that by touching, there's less variation between participants in terms of assessing these properties. And most variation registered for weight. And other properties showed slight variation. So this means that touch remains a more concrete way of assessing these properties. The third layer that we spoke about was the communication layer. So designers had to practically use words to describe these 7 textile properties. So what we noted is that some participants use more metaphorical language, and the others use more practical and quantifiable descriptors. But nevertheless, the language used by designers remains highly personal. And the last area that we tested is our interest area, is how can the incorporation of micro cameras of film support the tactile experience of and the virtual experience of materials. So we practically used 3 film criteria to rate how designers reacted to the 7 textile properties. We used camera angle, camera shot, and camera movement. And we noted that practically the texture and temperature were qualities that were explored mainly through extreme close-up pans and tilts. So these are camera effects that appeared consistently throughout the process of perceiving texture and temperature. And the other properties were explored rather through more static camera position. So while we have a small indication that these filmic strategies can become interesting when discovering certain properties of textile, we nevertheless cannot make any hard statement yet, because we will need to enlarge our study. So what we found out is practically it's interesting to note how properties like depth textile properties like density, rigidity, resistance, and weight have the highest variation during visual tests. So visual alliance is indeed less optimal and less precise than actual touching. That surface properties like texture show less variation, which highlights that these are easier to assess visually than depth properties of textiles. And then for the tactile test, it is interesting to know that properties like thickness show no variation, while properties like texture and weight show different degrees of variation. And verbal description, as I said, is much more difficult than scoring for people. These are initial results of our first pilot tests, and what we're interested in is to discover more patterns regarding filmic criteria, the 4th layer of our study. Nevertheless, in order to do that, we will need a much larger testing sample. So we're continuing right now the testing, and we're aiming to go through in the following months to reach around 20 tests with designers using the same structure that we have deployed until now.